Hey, everybody. Today, we're going to be talking about feudalism in Europe. Last time we talked about the problems that we had of the uh, early Middle Ages, and we're going to see how they tried to solve that lack of protection and order. Just going to go real back here. I forgot to show you the slide at the end of the other one. It was a little long. I apologize for that. Hopefully, you guys found it interesting with the additional stories. But as I said, we have all of these invasions going through. I mean, we see the Vikings, they make it to Constantinople, they make it to the Caspian Sea, they make it to southern France, all over. We see the Muslim invasion going in, attacking Italy, attacking France, Spain. We have the Magyars coming in, attacking. So we see how we have these invasions going, and we're going to see how Europeans are going to try to protect themselves, create order for their society. By the way, that's Charlemagne's crown. Yeah, that guy was rich. Anyways, like, subscribe, help out the channel. Okay, so review of the Dark Ages, which if you just watched this yesterday or the day before, hopefully this will be pretty fresh. It's a time for the early medieval period. And if you don't know the word medieval now, since you've been in my class for a year, it means from the Middle Ages. And this is the immediate fall of the Western Roman Empire. Now, here's the things that Rome gave people. It gave them order. I mean, the Romans were organized. Now, there were a lot of civil wars, lots of terrible things like that. But boy, when they had their things going, it was in order. It gave them protection. It kept people safe. With the Rome's legions, you had the best military in the world at this time, probably. We had technology. We often don't think about this, but the Romans, they were engineering masters, the aqueducts bringing fresh water miles and miles and miles, sewers so that your pee pee and poo poo goes away, which is incredibly important and something that they're going to lose when Rome is gone. Bathhouses so people are clean, roads so you could travel, amazing brick buildings, things like that. There's this joke basically how the Roman Empire was in Britain and how everything was at right angles, uniform, big stone buildings. And as soon as Rome fell, they start having things like in these circle clusters and made of wattle and daub, which you're going to see later on. Wattle and daub is basically sticks, straw, horse poop. Oh, and water, because you got to bind it all together. Oh boy. All right. They lose educational systems. Now, Charlemagne is going to try to bring this back in some ways, but not like the way Rome had it with its schools. They're going to lose trade. If it's not safe to bring all your goods, you're not going to do it. You're not able to produce the same kind of goods. So, losing Rome is going to lose a ton. And while you've lost all these things, you have groups, particularly the Vikings, coming in and destroying things, towns, churches, monasteries. Religious centers are going to be the Vikings' favorite targets because they're soft. Um, those monks, this isn't China where the monks are going to learn some martial arts. These are undefended, peaceful people, no weapons, and they're going to go and often have most of the riches because they distributed it to the people and it was given to them. So easy targets, big gains. One of the unfortunate side effects of this is also those monasteries and churches were often a lot of the literature was kept from the past and it was destroyed. So the sad thing that we see happening, besides the loss of life and everything, is the fact that we are going to lose some information forever. But I want you to realize one of the main ideas during the time that we just discussed, the early medieval period or the Dark Ages, was that life was not safe during this time. So, how are we going to fix it? We said at the end of our last lecture that feudalism was the key. Feudalism was the key. Order needed to be created because this ain't Rome anymore, to borrow from a brilliant song done by a very, very handsome man, right? I can see you rolling your eyes right now. All right, so what we do is we have a power structure that looks like a pyramid. We have the king on top. Then we're going to have high nobles, then lesser nobles, and then peasants. Now you're going to see this labeled many different ways. It might say high nobles. It might just say nobles. It might say the barons. And this might say lesser nobles. It might say knights. One of the things I'm trying to dispel from you all, man, I can't speak today, is the fact that these lesser nobles, the knights, they're kind of the same thing. There are differences, but basically this is based on your wealth, the amount of land you have. And then on the bottom, we have peasants and serfs, the farmers. Now, feudalism, which we just talked about in Japan, it's the social, political, and economic system of Europe during this times. It's the political. Who is your boss? Who is in charge of you? It is the economic. How do you make money? How do you provide for your family? And it is the social. Who are you friends with, allowed to associate with? Because trust me, these peasants are not having any relationships with anybody above them unless it's the relationship of these guys are ordering them around. These guys are providing justice for them. That's it. There's no personal relationships here. So let's look at this system of lords and vassals. Okay, now this can get a little complicated. You might need to pause it. You might need to rewind it a little bit. Please feel free to ask me questions either in the comments or ask me questions through Google Classroom, because this can be confusing, and this is a really important idea that we have here. So one of the things you have to know is power belongs to those who controls the land. Land equals power equals money. Land equals power equals money. I normally would write this on the whiteboard, but I have no whiteboard to write on here. So the Lord has the power because the Lord has the land. Have you ever heard the term landlord? Perhaps anybody who family rents? Yeah, landlord. This is where we still get this. We still use this term today. Now, having lots of land is great. I'm sure. I mean, I don't have lots of land, but if I had it, I'm sure it would be great. But just having the land to have it doesn't really do anything. So the Lord wants vassals. A vassal is someone who pledges loyalty to the Lord. Now, they're not just going to say, I will serve you. No, they want something. And what they want land. So what you do is someone like a knight, someone who has armor and skills and training and weapons, you're going to want them on your side. So you give them some land, and then they will fight for you. There we see the Lord right here. We see the knights. Now, if you take the Lord's land and pledge them loyalty, you have to follow the Lord's laws. Okay? So you follow the laws. Now, and like I said, you are not fighting for them for free. You're not following their laws for free. You are given land. It's called a fief. The fief would be your land to use as if it was yours, but it is not. It is the Lord's. He can take it away if you're not a loyal vassal. And that fief is your sustenance. And this would go down to, on the fief would be the peasants who work the land for you. So right here would be the peasant. Now, the peasant is here. He works the land because he needs protection. You have those Vikings coming around. Now, some of those knights and things, they go on the council. They go pay their taxes, which are worked by the vassal, to the Lord. The Lord protects his vassals with his other vassals, gives them legal defense, and gives them sustenance. He gives them the land. Now, there'd be a special ceremony called the Oath of Fealty. Now, one of the things you need to realize is that you could be both a lord and a vassal at the same time. We had that pyramid before with the king on the top. The king is the lord of everyone in his kingdom. He may be vassal to another king. He may be vassal to the Pope. They usually were vassals to the Pope. Now, the Lord would get his vassals, some barons, some high nobles. Now, they would be vassals to the king. The king would then go and give them land so that they serve him. But those barons, they're not going to fight. Are you crazy? No, they're too rich and important for that. So then they divvy out parts of their land to many lesser nobles and knights, and they are going to do the brunt of the work for the fighting. Of course, they're not going to do the farming work. That's for the regular people who live there. So they have the special ceremony, the oath of fealty, and we're going to see how this all works for them getting what they want with the manor system. So hopefully you understand this. Like I said, you might need to rewind it, watch it again. Just know that if we have our pyramid just backing up, boop, 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 boop. So everyone above is a lord. So these guys are lords to them. These guys are lords to them. This guy, lord to them. Then you have to remember, these guys, they're vassals. These guys, they're vassals. These guys, they're vassals. So we see the lords, it goes down, vassalage goes up. I hope that helps. Like I said, leave questions in the comments or in Google Classroom so that I can help you out. Anyways, the manor system. Now, a lord would have one or more manors, and a manor was designed to be completely self-sufficient, meaning have everything that you need. And this is how you get your wealth. So we look at this, we see the manor house. We have this big manor house. And we have barns, we have ovens, we have mills. Mills are where the, goes along the stream, and then it grinds the wheat into flour so you can bake bread. You have different fields for planting. You have a wood lot for getting wood. You have a church because everybody went to church back then. You have pasture land for the animals. You have a pond so you can get fish, meadows for the animals to go graze on. I mean, you have everything you can. You have a village. Notice the size of those peasant houses compared to the manor house. So you have all of these things. Because we have to So they were completely self-sufficient now. And the way it worked was peasants lived in the village and they worked the lands. And the peasants did all of the farming. So the peasants would have some fields that were considered their own to farm, and they would farm those. They would have to give a portion of that crop to the lord. Then the lord had his own fields, which the peasants would farm, and that all goes to the lord. Then, when you go to the mill to grind your grain, guess what? The lord goes and takes a percentage of the flour that you create. So you grind all of the lord's flour and you give that to him. Then you grind the portion of your fields that you grew for the lord, and then you give that to him after you grinded. And then, of course, you go and grind yours, and then you give a portion of that. It was up to the lord how much you gave. Nicer lords might take a little less. Stingier lords might take a little bit more. Here's just another representation of the medieval manor. You see, of course, you're going to have a forest. You can do your hunting. You can get wood, common pasture land. Of course, you're going to have a village. Often there would be a church for the village, for the peasants, and a chapel for the lords so that they wouldn't be going to church together because you wouldn't want to be next to stinky peasants all this time. Oh, that reminds me, we didn't get to do our feudal simulation. Oh, we normally play a game where you get to be lords, peasants, king, or queen. It's awesome. Oh, I miss it. Can't wait to go back. You have an orchard so you can have fruit. You have different fields for the planting, barns, meadows. You got it all. So let's talk about these peasants and serfs here. Peasants did all of the work on the manor. All of it. All of the farming. All of the labor. Even in fact, when you went to war, the knights are going to be the main soldiers, but often some of those peasants will be conscripted in and forced to fight as well. Now, like I said, they farm the lord's fields, they farm some of the land for themselves. Now, some people are thinking right now, why would they do all of this work? It's because they are protected. It's nice to live. And if you don't have protection at this time, you might not. These are dangerous times, folks. You have all these different invasions, so many different sicknesses, the idea of famine and starvation. It was very real. I mean, 50% of us wouldn't have made it to adulthood, at least. Sometimes even higher percentages because of how many things could get you back then. Now, if you live on the Lord's land, you had to obey those laws. Now, you might have a nice lord, and you might have many rights. You might be treated kindly. You might have a cruel lord where you're treated very harshly. If you're a peasant, you're allowed to leave the land. If you're a serf, you were tied to the land. You were owned with the land, almost like a slave. Not quite, but almost. So, and it just depends on where we're peasants, where we're serfs. It just depended where you were in Europe. Eastern Europe primarily had serf systems. Western Europe had more peasants, but that wasn't, hard and fast rule. So, those are peasants. Those are serfs. Would not be fun to be one. So let's just make sure we review this. And so we hopefully can see what we have here for our feudal system. We have our pyramid. You see king, lords, knights, peasants. Remember, this could say lords, it could say high nobles, it could say barons, this could say knights, it could say lesser nobles. Basically, the idea is how much land you have. And of course, the king gives land to the lord, who gives land to knights, who then go and give protection to peasants. We have the peasants, they give their food to the knight. The knights give their loyalty to the lord, give their loyalty to the king. I hope this helps. I hope you guys understand it, because this is a super important idea, and we kind of went through it quickly when we studied Japan. So please like, subscribe, leave any comments down, questions. Glad to help. And I hope you guys have a safe and happy day. I miss you all. Bye-bye.